GJ Math. Let's practice a few geometric SN sums. So these are the ones that's going to be played in the video. And yeah, try them, mark them, see if you really understand or not. And then let me know how it went. Enjoy. Question 1. Determine the sum of the first 10 terms. So now, very important, in an exam, you're not going to be told if it's geometric or arithmetic. Sometimes you'll have to figure it out. So when I look at this, I can see there I'm plussing 36, and there I'm definitely not plussing 36. So it can't be arithmetic. Geometric, I am dividing by -3, I am dividing by -3. So always just test to see, is it arithmetic or geometric or maybe something else? You do get trick questions in exams where it's neither of the ones that you learned, but there would always be a trick to make it a bit easier. Anyway, I am asked to do the sum of the first 10 terms, so I'm going to work out what is Sn. I know n is 10. I can see A is -27, and then R, if I said 9 divided by -27, I would get -1/3. I'm going to use the formula on screen, so I'm just going to say S10 would be equal to my A value -27, and then R, remember to put it in its own separate bracket because it has an exponent and a negative. So -1/3 to the power 10 minus 1 all over -1/3 minus 1. I can then just put that on my calculator. This is not a very nice answer, so geometric sequences can sometimes give you massive numbers, or it can give you massive fractions. That's fine. Don't think that something went wrong. In grade 12, that rule of if it looks like a weird number, it's wrong, that rule doesn't count anymore. So minus 14,762 over 729. You can also leave it in decimal. Your teacher knows you use your calculator for this one, but your choice. So I would also get full marks for that. There we go. Why is it 3 marks? Because you subbed into the correct formula and your use of brackets and minuses are correct. So I think you can get a second mark there and then a third mark for the answer. Okay, question 2. Determine the sum of the following series, and I see a ... in there. So they're asking me for sum of, so Sn. Now I'm going to work that out. But I can't start with that because I also don't know what n is. The value they give me, that's 16,000, that is, or that I'm going to use in the Tn formula to help me get n. But I can see A is equal to 4, and then R would be -8 divided by 4 gives me -2. So first going to do the Tn formula. So Tn equals 4 times -2 to the power n minus 1. I can then sub in, so 16384 equals to 4 times -2 n minus 1. I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides. It's going to give me 4096 equals -2 to the power n minus 1. So I want to get both bases to a -2. So that 4,000, I'm going to shift fact. Now, it's going to tell me the answer is 2 to the power 12, but please just make it a -2 because the base on the other side is a -2, and the exponent is an even number, so the minus would cancel out anyway. But if you don't write it, you lose a mark. Bases are the same. I can drop them, so then I can see 12 is equal to n minus 1, so n is equal to 13. Now I can update my list and say, I know that n is 13. Question is, what is Sn? So S13 would then be equal to A times R, again, remember your brackets, 13, a big -1, and then all over R minus 1. If I type that in the calculator, I get 10,924. Okay, so why is this one 5 marks? Okay, so because you knew to do the Tn formula, you'd get a mark there. Then for reducing that 16,000 and doing the right things until you got to the shift fact part of the question, you'd get another mark. For getting the right n value, you would get a mark. Then for subbing into Sn and getting the right formula. So you can see already it counts so much more than the easy ones, which just sub in the first 10 terms. Okay, so how did you guys do? Did you know this was what you needed to do, or did you struggle a bit? Question 3. How many terms must be added to give that answer? Okay, so I now know what SN is, 2049 over 4096. I'm asked to work out N. I know A is equal to 3 over 4, and then R would be term 2 divided by term 1. So if I say minus 3 over 8 divided by 3 over 4, you can type it on your calculator, or just tip and times like the good old days in the primary school. So if I tip and times, the 3's cancel, 4 goes in there once, 4 goes in there twice, and the answer is minus a half. Okay, so now that I have all of that, I can just put it into the SN formula and then work out what is N. So 2049 over 4096 equals to, making the fraction, A times R. So I'm just going to put it in its own, say, as a half, to the power, I don't know. So N, and then a big minus 1 at the bottom, R minus 1. My first step is going to be to take the denominator on the right and multiply it to the left. So 2049 over 4096, and then multiply by negative 3 over 2. In the next step, I'll take over the other thing. So there's nothing else I can simplify on this side. My calculator tells me the answer is minus 6147 all over 8192. So, like I said, now I can take over the 3 over 4. So I'm just going to say I'm going to divide by 3 over 4 on this side. That leaves me with the R to the power N minus 1. If I type that into the calculator, my answer will be minus 2049 over 2048. Okay, so now I want to get this base alone. So I'm just going to plus 1 to the other side, and that's going to give me minus 1 over 2048 is equal to minus a half to the power N. So now I need to get the bases the same on both sides. So you can either go logs, or you can do just the shift fact. So let's do the shift fact for this question. I'll do a separate video for logs and explain all these concepts with the new way of doing it. So on my calculator, if I type in 2048, so remember your calculator can't take fractions and it can't take a minus. So just do 2048 shift fact, and it would tell you it is 2 to the power 11. Because both numbers were fractions, I can write it as a half, and because the base on the right has a minus, I can say it was actually minus a half. And that makes that the bases are the same. I can drop them, and therefore N equals 11 in this sum. So how many terms should be added? 11 terms should be added. Where are you going to get your 5 marks? So definitely for subbing into the SN formula correctly. Then for just simplifications and doing your algebra correctly. So I would get a mark if I get to there, and then if I get to the 11 and 4, actually answering the question. Okay, how did that question go? So it's a bit more advanced and having to remember shift fact, but how much did you get out of 5? Question 4. In the following geometric series, and they give me the series, what is the sum of the first 11 terms? So they are asking me to work out Sn. I know N in question A is going to be 11. A is going to be 3 over 4. And then R is just going to be term 2 divided by term 1. But if I look at it, I can see I'm just multiplying by 2. Okay. So for question A, what is the sum of the first 11 terms? Just going to sub it in. So S11 equals my A value, 3 over 4, and then 2 to the power 11 minus 1, all over 2 minus 1. If I type it in, I get an answer of 6141 over 4. Okay. You can leave it in decimal as well, but yeah, you can choose. Question B. How many terms add up to that fraction? So, updating my list, I am going to work out what's n, but I know Sn is this big fraction over here. Okay, so I'm going to do the Sn formula and just going to start with this big fraction on the side. Okay, that is equal to, okay, so a 3 over 4 in a bracket 2 to the power n is what I want to work out, and then over 2 minus 1. Okay, so now firstly 2 minus 1 is just 1, so luckily I can just ignore that. The first thing I'm going to do is then divide both sides by 3 over 4. 196,605 over 4 divided by 3 over 4 equals 2 to the power n minus 1. Now, if I type that on the calculator, I will see the answer is actually 65535. Now, that minus 1 on the right, I'm going to take it over, and it's going to become a plus 1 on this side. If I now take that number and shift fact, it's going to tell me this is 2 to the power 16, and therefore n is 16. How many terms add up to that number? 16 terms add up to that number. Okay, question C. So this is now again the level 4 exam question. So in this case, determine the smallest amount of terms that would give me a value of greater than 1,100. So greater than, I am going to do a inequality for this sum. Okay, and n is what they are asking me again. So once again, if I do an inequality with a Sn or a Tn, I am going to put the value on the right-hand side. It just makes it easier to talk about smaller than and bigger than if it's on the right, because if you switch it, then in your brain you need to switch it as well, and it just becomes complicated. We don't want that. So 3 over 4, and then 2 to the power n minus 1 over r minus 1 is then greater than 1,100. Okay, once again, 2 minus 1 is just 1. I can ignore that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 3 over 4. So 2n minus 1, and then divide 3 over 4 there, and that would tell me the answer is 1466.67, and I can take over the 1. 1467.67. Okay, so you are in chapter 1 at the beginning of the year, so you will actually not be able to do this sum. This is a log sum. So when you get to chapter 2, we'll teach you all about logs, and then by the time you write June exams and definitely finals, you will have a full mastery of what logs are. So if you want to check out of the next one, that's fine. You can skip until you've learned logs. But if you watch this video later in the year, let's solve this with logs. So logs will say, I put a log, the base stays the base. So 2 to the power n, the base is 2. And then the base stays the base, and the other two numbers swap around. So I can leave n there. So the n is now not with the 2 anymore. Okay, the n stays on the left, greater than log base 2 of that number. And then if I type that in my calculator, it will tell me n must be greater than 10.52, and therefore n must be equal to 11. Question was, determine the smallest amount of terms that would make Sn greater than 1,100. 11 terms are the smallest amounts I can add to get a number bigger than 1,100. Okay guys, that was the Sn practice video. How did it go? It's fine if you don't count the last 5 marks, but how did the other 4 questions go? Sorry, I forgot to mark. Okay, so let's mark and see how you did. So question A, I would give a mark for the correct formula, a mark for the answer. Then question B, you would definitely get your 3 marks for correct formula and making Tn equal to that value. Then for doing the shift fact and then answering the question. That's where you would get your 3 marks. Okay, so now with question C, if you did not attempt this, it's fine. Come back after chapter 2 and then attempt this one. But if I had to give it a mark, I would give a mark for the correct inequality, for actually using the correct formula, and for putting the 1,100 in there. So you'll actually get 2 or 3 marks for the top line. Then for using your log correctly, and then choosing 11 as your final answer. Okay, how did this exercise go? If this was a test, how would you have scored on this one? Okay, bye.
If this video helped you, please like and subscribe.
JJ Math.